turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hello there, Tim.
Good morning, Ryan.
And hello, good morning, afternoon, good evening, Tim Pause. Everyone, welcome to Dismembering Horror, episode 156 of Dismembering Horror, the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie, and
Myself, Tim Aslan.
That's right. We dismember a horror film every week, in fact. We talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything else we found interesting or noteworthy about a, you guessed it, horror film. All with under the spirit and safety and fun and guys and hopeful atmosphere of friends getting together, having a good time, watching a horror movie, and talking about it afterwards. Talking about exactly what we said we're going to talk about. What worked, what didn't, and things of note. That's how we separate them. We also have a little summary up front, if you're new here, so we can get on the same page of what it is that we thought we watched. But we hope you joined us in watching this week's film, Noroi, The Curse, from 2005, directed by Kōji Shiraishi, with a screenplay also by Shiraishi-san and Naoyuki Yokota. Apologies for the less fluid pronunciation of your wonderful names. Great. Tim, this is one of the rare Japanese films that you put in our hat.
I don't know if I want to take that, claim that responsibility personally, but I guess I have to.
Because I've seen this before in my movie binging days of yore and did not feel I had to see it again. But now I
apologize. I
talk about now having seen it, I wish I hadn't. Great. Well, now we can talk about why, which we always hope to get something out of because we're on a mission here. Great. Anything else you got to check up on horror-wise?
I'm good.
Cool.
Nothing's really going on, you know?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, just because it's fun of keeping track of how we're the connectivity of all the films that make up our show. But when we were reviewing Dismembering Equinox, the producer of that film who picked it up was Jack Harris. And I'm like, that's so familiar. And I just kind of like failed to make the connection and mention it. But he was the producer on the original Blob, which we dismembered, of course.
Okay.
So, which I even mentioned as a reference point for describing what Equinox was. So Jack Harris behind both. It was fun to note that. So a bit after the fact from our episode, but I thought fun to mention.
What are you going to do?
Exactly. Better late than never. All right. So, for Noroi, The Curse. Oh, I suppose we should just start how we always do with our fun little trailer here.
Okay.
Great. All right. Here we go for the trailer. Once again, from 2005, Noroi, The Curse.
気持ち悪い声っていうのは私は赤ちゃんのなんでそんな言い方ができるみんなにはね投資をやってもらいます気がついたらその模様を描いちゃってるんですよ東京都練馬区にある広沼公園で視察しました家具束の呪い家具束こと家具束ってなんだ家具束
The patented Tim sigh.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, can you curtail that sigh into your rating for this film per our rating system, telling yourself to avoid, stream, rent, or buy Noroi the Curse?
I'm gonna say that you can stream this, but just understand that you're not going to watch a good movie.
You would tell yourself that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, partially because my broad review would be, this is a movie filled with fairly good ideas and exceptionally bad execution of those ideas by way of a failed attempt at using the found footage genre. The end.
He did not mince words, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I won't mince words here. I agree with what you said as far as...
I mean, I'm as close to an avoid as you can get without...
I agree with what you said as far as why it is bad. But those reasons... And that, where it's working as far as some story things or whatever. But that is not nearly good enough for me to have watched it either of these times. So I can't tell myself anything other than to avoid this film I've now seen twice.
Yeah. I spent most of the movie being like, oh, if this wasn't this movie, and it was like done in any different way, like non-found footage in particular, I was like, you can make a pretty good movie with these ideas and with some of the design. But
yeah,
womp.
It doesn't change my nearly 2-hour experience of just wanting it to be over, though.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which, again, was my first experience watching it, too. But I swear, I'm pretty good at going in with, resetting my expectations. But when a movie loses me so hard within the first second of its execution, it's hard to win me back.
Yeah. All right, well, let's not belabor the point. Here's what happens in the movie. Here's a summary. Found footage. There's a guy. He's a paranormal sort of personality. He seeks
Kobayashi.
out paranormal stuff. He was researching a particular kind of sequence of connected events, chasing down this, eventually chasing down this term that he comes to learn, and trying to figure out where it comes from. And it's called Kagutaba, and finds out basically that there's a village that was that used to have a ritual that brought to life a demon, and that village was submerged underwater when a dam was built, and now that people from that village, one person in particular from that village, has been trying to unleash that demon and curse presumably the world, I guess. And that's it. The end. Everybody dies.
Great. It seemed like so much more happens. But
it does,
you know
but
what?
it's this meandering way of telling the story, right? Like every event and person you meet leads to meeting a new person that leads to meeting a new person, and like information is sort of doled out through each new person, and eventually that search comes back around and connects. But ultimately it's just a series of sort of clue discovery, leading up to finding out that, in fact, yes, the demon has been unleashed. And the consequence of that is that anybody who comes in contact with it dies.
And our heroes, you could say, are who we've already mentioned: Kobayashi, the documentary filmmaker, the actor slash TV personality Marika Matsumoto, who she is playing herself, and then our crazed psychic guy Hori, and that's kind of that's about it. Then Junko is the
I guess
crazed neighbor woman.
Yeah, it's important to say that there are two components that are driving everything. One is the disappearance of a seemingly psychic child, and this neighbor person who seemed to be disconnected from the plot, but turns out is literally the connective tissue, and that's the woman you just mentioned, whose name now I can't find.
Junko.
Yeah. So it's all connected to her. She's the one trying to unleash the demon. The end.
Tim, you're just so excited about this summary.
I don't even know. It's so it's convoluted in such a way. I mean, it's actually really simple, but the way that this movie portrays the plot makes it convoluted. It's not really that convoluted in actuality, but it just ends up being that way because of how it's executed. So it's hard to even kind of be like, what's even worth mentioning in the summary? Paranormal researcher gets on a case. It leads him to learning about a curse, which leads him to the town that is the source of the curse, which leads him to seeing that the curse has unleashed a demon, which leads him to being cursed by the demon, and he dies. Is that better?
I wouldn't say better or worse, but it's what we already said. Nor was I needing anything more. I didn't. I think everything you said before then was fine too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. We did it.
I was just noting your lack of enthusiasm for the film.
Well, you noted correctly.
Great. Well, we can still accentuate the positive, as we hope and like to do. We can't only do that, unfortunately, but for the brief period that our next section will last us, why don't we? So with that, if you're ready, Tim, our next section, what did not what I was going to say, what did not work already? Yeah. No, as I said, accentuate the positive. What worked?
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I mean, yeah, the story that was going on was cool. I picked up on
the actual story is cool.
Yeah, like the crazed villagers worshiping evil demon originally involved using little monkeys as part of the ritual. So now they're using preborn babies,
aborted fetuses.
Which is always, I got to appreciate the Japanese for going there, so to speak.
Right.
So I appreciated all that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a bunch of just basic sort of elements that I think, like I said, like you could make I think a pretty scary movie in line with The Grudge or with what's the other one?
Ringu?
Yeah. Like it'd be in that same vein, and I think that could work pretty well. So some of those elements are the actual lore that we come to understand through the story, which is, like you mentioned, there was a village. They had a really specific, unique ritual that was made to bring out this demonic entity for... What was the purpose of it originally? Because they say what it was for, but then they say it got, they couldn't control it. And now I can't remember what that was, but whatever. So it's it's man meddling in powers that they can't control. That's a cool thing to start with. And then the consequences of that and trying to find the connective tissue through this sort of whodunit detective story. That's all really cool. I mean, I think that that's good stuff. The design of the sort of, I think there was a term for it, but essentially the faces of the dead children have been carved into this mask. Or I mean, it's the face of the demon, I guess, more specifically, but then there's this kind of connection to all of the children that have been used in the ceremony. That's, disturbing and cool. I thought the finale kind of imagery was really cool, where you have this woman who is feeding on these aborted fetuses that previously in the ceremony were, like you said, monkeys. That's a pretty messed up image and like a shocking thing to come to in the progression of the story. It's sort of, it's a fun, like, we've built up to this thing and then it pays off. It's like, whoa, that's super
that
intense.
actually was done well with the found footage style, as far as the night vision of just kind of seeing the outlines of the fetuses climbing up on her.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the psychic kid stuff as a story point, not the execution of it, but just the context of that was cool. I like that idea that there's sort of harnessing the power of this kid who has psychic abilities or extrasensory abilities as a way to unlock the demon. Like that's a cool idea. Also gives you a reason to, like, it's a good plot device to say, okay, well, first of all, we were just interested in this kid who had abilities, but then that kid went missing. Like, that's exciting. Now we got to go find the kid. Like any good sort of detective story, figure out who did the thing. And having it be a kid is smart too, because it makes us feel compelled to be like, no, we want to save the kid. We want to help them. And honestly, I don't know. That's kind of where that's it for me. Like, these are, if you were to use all of those things in a more, I guess, traditional cinematic narrative, non-found footage, I think that there is a good movie in there. The eeriness of some of the design.
Great. The
but that's
ESP psychic girl stuff, which you mentioned, liking the idea of it all. I'll actually go a step further. More than just the idea of it, I loved that whole segment of like the psychic TV show of enlisting the children, where it was just done in the style of like a funny, how they just Japanese TV show, just the full style of watching the I don't know what you call them. They aren't commentators, but like the reactors person, watching in the little corner screen. But that was more just because like I would get a kick out of watching that show in actuality or special or whatever it would be. So isolated into itself, watching it as if it was a real thing or not. I had fun watching that segment. That was definitely my favorite part of the film. My other favorite, I guess, something that goes just beyond a moment, but was an aspect, was our crazy worm-fearing guy, Hori, who was just so ridiculous, but like in that way that I love extreme performances, where like he was just at 11 the whole time, and the whole movie was like ridiculous in a way where I was never, I can't get into what worked, what did not work. I was letting myself slip into. Anyway, if there had been more of his over-the-top ridiculous style and the movie was just embracing that for what it was, I would have had more fun with it. And he was, his ridiculous over-the-topness, it was fun. It made me sit up. How he was like the classic, like climbing into a box that looked like it was outlined with tinfoil, him screaming about pigeons and assaulting our woman, trying to warn her of something. Just his ticky performance. It was just the way he was fully committing to something over the top. I just get tickled by. And it was kind of the only moments aside from the TV show where I just wasn't wanting it to be over, because at least something just kind of fun was happening. Tim, so I feel like I agree with what your face is saying, that it doesn't make for a more realistic movie, which we'll get into. But just you're looking for anything that's just has any kind of entertainment value, and even if it's hurting it overall, at least is entertaining.
Yeah, I fundamentally disagree from my experience about that character being entertaining.
Well, to use harsher words, you thought it was stupid?
Stupid's not the right adjective, but I could elaborate in what did not work.
Okay. Well, I just feel like anything that, yes, I could easily include this in what worked and what did not work sections. So again, for sheer entertainment value, just someone as ridiculous as this character at least made me laugh and have a fun time. The moment that I kind of liked outside of those things was and kind of worked well with the found footage style was the telekinetic power of the plates going across the table during a dinner scene.
That was a cool visual. That was a good moment. Actually, There are probably 4 solid moments, in my opinion, that like work, like they viscerally worked in terms of like horror scare or at least high creep moments. That's one of them for sure. Super well executed. The glitching of the camera to show the many sort of carved faces, there's something really effective and eerie about that. The figure behind Marika, when they watch that footage back, seeing that for the first time, I like that. Just fun. It's very simple. And then, like I mentioned before, in that finale, the night vision imagery of that woman, consuming these little crawly, I guess, fetuses, which is really messed up. But those 4, I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
good job.
I'll agree with all that. The one thing I'll add on to all that, just the arrival at the creepy cursed town in question out in the boonies, that just had a good atmosphere to it. We're out in the boonies feel, the ropes all hung in circles hanging.
Yeah.
It just had a good sense of creepy atmosphere. The neighbors not wanting to talk to anyone as over the top as it was. Just that whole look and feel felt eerie. Just kind of like a whole town that's the Ju-on house almost.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, that's what I have for what worked for me.
Yeah. The moment, to go back to the psychic TV show thing, having her get 4 or 5 right or whatever, and then draw this face on the last one, and having everybody kind of disregard what she actually drew because it was not the correct answer, I thought was really cool. And it did come back around. Like that face design, which is the mask that the villagers used to depict the demon, and the ceremony of the woman who was the daughter of the priest. I mean, it gets really convoluted, but whatever, who ends up kind of going crazy, who then is the woman trying to unleash the demon in the end. Like that all as a connective thread, and how it ends up kind of unfolding. Like we get those answers throughout. I think it's a good through line. So, you know, I guess that's sort of saying the design of that and the use of kind of unraveling those clues connected to that design throughout worked quite well for me. And then everything around it didn't work.
Yeah, and I agreed. Like with, you know, I mentioned liking that whole TV show sequence, but within that was really cool of just establishing a pattern and breaking it. We sort of get on board. She has the psychic ability. She's 4 out of 4 photos, pictures, drawings, getting them right. And in the last one, when she didn't draw exactly what was there, it's that eerie thing of we knew she's must be pulling from something.
Yes.
In drawing that. Yeah, that was effective. That was neat.
But yeah,
and it's always creepy when it's kids because like
kids are freaky and weird.
Well, you know they're going to be honest to an extent, and they'll. It's like they only will give the info when prompted correctly. There's something creepy and suspenseful about that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay, but that's it.
If that's it for you and that's it for me, then we can now move on to our next section for Noroi, the curse. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
Okay, well, let's just settle Tim this Hori thing, this crazed character guy, because I said what I did like about him, sheer entertainment value, but he could also be a good in for this discussion because he's also indicative of I'm just not buying into this being real at all, which is key for a found footage film.
Right.
It's entirely necessary. So, and maybe he's just, I don't know, maybe it was that he was extra over the top, which is why I actually had fun with it. But like, I don't know, from the opening seconds, just something about the music, the text on screen, it's just immediately like, oh God, here we go. I'm not buying in at all. I don't know. It's just something about the staging of the actors. It's just every single scene, it just feels phony. The lead, I'm sure he's a great guy, but he just is, he's not reacting in a way that is not good. Not where we see this internal processing happening. He's just, I don't know, it's just kind of a bleh. I feel that I hate talking this way, but this is my experience.
Almost wonder if it is kind of a part of why it's not working is that, well, I don't know that this is true, but I wonder if there's sort of a breakdown in the conceptualization of how people in found footage movies are supposed to be. And that they just they got it wrong. Like they were caricaturing an already sort of inherently caricatured thing, and you end up with this wholly other thing that is like, it's not even it's the point of found footage is to feel as though there's realism. And it's like I think they missed that point completely. And I don't know. I mean, if that was just how it ended up, or if that was by design, but a mistaken design, that they were like coaching the actors to be over the top acting as if they are actors in a found footage movie, rather than saying you're just a normal person. You're a real person. Just be that. That's what found footage is supposed to sort of be. And so it didn't work. It was like the crazy guy kind of to me was the biggest example of this, where it's like that guy's not acting like somebody who's lost their mind. He's overacting the concept of a performance of somebody who lost their mind. It's like too many added things. It's bad acting, like really bad to me, and to the point that it makes me feel almost like it's borderline offensive. And it's not offensive, but it's so out of touch to me that I'm like, I've seen actors who show up and are trying to do a thing and be crazy, and it feels like they are trying. It doesn't feel grounded in anything. It feels like an attention-seeking, look at me perform. And this bordered on that. And I'm like, it's losing me just completely then, because I just don't believe even the slightest momentary second of any of it. And that's a huge problem in a found footage movie, right? Like, you're supposed to believe these people.
So for me, if I'm already lost completely, then at least something that over the top is interesting.
Yeah. I found it just obnoxiously like off-putting. Because this leads me to the other main issue to me with this movie. This movie, in terms of the actual content of story, is, I would guess, maybe 45 minutes of like solid content, maybe. But every single scene just goes on and on, like as if they didn't know when to just sort of say, okay, let's do that. Like what you guys did, that sort of, if whether or not it was improvised, it probably was to some degree. They didn't know when to say stop. So scenes just carry on, and people repeat themselves over and over because they don't really have anything else to say. And then it just goes, no, it's like, we got the information. Let's move on. And I mean, the only scene that felt like it had kind of a concise, like beginning, middle, and end that like gave us something worthwhile was the psychic TV show scene, where it like got us somewhere. It was timed out just about appropriately, where we didn't get bored. We got something of interest by the end of it, and we moved on. But man, like every scene with Hori is just him ranting, and it just never ends. I just, it's really hard to care if you've like shot your load and then you just keep going endlessly.
Well, at least Hori was unpredictable, whereas like everyone else they talked to, it was just...
I felt like he was as predictable because he sort of just said the same thing over and over again.
Meaning when you have a performance that's so over the top, you just don't know if he's going to tick left or right. That's all I mean. But compared to just the sullen creepy of everyone else they've talked to, where it's just like the fall asleep creepy,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, to me that just again, it's the execution. Like found footage, Blair Witch suffers from this too a little bit. Where like, and it was by design. They were just like, we're gonna kind of film you, just go, improv and go about what you go about. But as the movie progresses in Blair Witch, at least you ramp up. There's a middle section of Blair Witch that is just like long and arduous. But this kind of is doing that in the wrong direction and just keeps going. And I was like, oh God, can we get to something? I mean, I guess we eventually do, but by then I was like, it's an hour 50, I think the movie is, isn't it? Something like that. It's way too long for this. So, 115 minutes. God. So it was really hard. Now, one of the reasons I think primarily that it really doesn't keep us engaged is, like you said, the main character guy he's a nothing burger. Like, he's not a character. We certainly don't, there's no reason for us to care about him, or no perceivable one on my end. And he doesn't have any real connection to anybody personally. So, I mean, I guess he wants to find the girl, but even that, we don't have a secondary reason for that, right? Like, if you want to build a good character, I mean, the most rudimentary, blatant way to have us care about what he cares about is to have him have had a kid that fucking went missing. Or something like that. Like, anything that connects us to caring about what he wants. And you just don't get that. He just thinks paranormal stuff is cool. All right, whatever.
Which we never even see that.
It's not like he learns anything either. There's no plight.
He never even sees... we never even see him thinking paranormal stuff is cool. He never seems to
That's
be
right. He just
interested.
does it. That's what he does.
Yeah. You mentioned the Blair Witch Project. I got to push back a bit. I think that is a pretty gosh darn flawless film. I do not think it sags in the middle or anything like that. And what I think that film is doing, which this one isn't, is it's using that, well, actually well done sense of realism and improvisation as giving a sense of progression and trajectory of just sort of turning the heat up, starting slower with the pacing, turning up the suspense. It's using that style like for a bigger picture goal, which this film, it's just sort of like you said, you know, where it's nothing actually happens in the scene aside from maybe just the one thing. And then we're just kind of like, I guess this whole scene is just about looking at gray, creepy video atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
But then just because I had it down too, I mentioned Blair Witch in my comparison of feeling like this film was a weird, awkward in-between of a more like well-done realistic style and then like the Zach Bagans style that we watched, Ghost Demon House or whatever.
Does this predate Ghost Adventures? I think it does.
This is 2005, so you would know that. You're the...
Well,
I feel like it's in the
like 18 fucking seasons of that show.
Well, it's in the midst of
the
craze,
original
for
release
sure.
is 08
I remember,
for Ghost Adventures.
I think the haunting show craze was at its maybe height back then.
Not by much.
But do you know what I mean as far as like the style where in the Zach Bagans thing, it's just like over the top. Here's text telling you the exact story beats. Here's the sound effect to make you like, oh my God, creepy thing appeared. Here's the eerie music. Here, it just feels like as if it was Zach Bagans trying and failing to make a more quote unquote like serious style, or as I said, like understated Blair Witch style. But it's like he can just not help himself here and there, or it's never what he was supposed to do in the first place. So Zach, just give us Zach and go all out and your craziness, which he does. And maybe that's just what I was wanting from this one, and why I keep coming back to horror. I'm like, if this just wasn't trying to be eerie realistic and just had fun with itself in a way, like it could have, I don't know, it could have been the Zach Bagans of the found footage horror films, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, a big part of that, you're dead on a thing that I had forgotten really bothered me. There's so much being thrown at us that is completely unnecessary in terms of production. Like, if there were no chyrons, no leading the way, like, they tell us like where we are constantly. We know. We don't need to know that this is day 16, June 5th, like in this town, at this location, at this address. Like, we don't need to know any of that stuff. Like, it's already implicit. And like, it doesn't help us to have that information put up on the screen. It doesn't make the experience like creepier or better or more clear. Like, none of those things are beneficial to this type of movie. If this had just been raw footage and presented as, because they kind of tried to do this in the beginning where they're like, oh, we found this tape from this guy who went missing. If they just put the tape in and it only was footage and didn't like hold our hand at all, I probably would have liked it a hell of a lot more. It also, this is kind of incidental, but it certainly didn't help that you had, I don't actually know what language, but they had a different language subtitled and then the English subtitles over those subtitles. So very hard to read. Just everything is working against this movie in terms of the things that are put up on the screen.
Yeah, and the music, again, these creepy music cues, quote unquote creepy music cues. It feels like if there's that fine line between music adding and music compensating, this was definitely on the side of compensating. Hate to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, to me it just feels like a really, really bad attempt at like trying to do all the things that you think make up something like a scary found footage movie, but it's like there's no broader conceptual design. It's sort of just throw everything at the wall, and because that's what's scary, and that's a terrible way to like approach a thing, right? Like there's just nothing there underneath this surface presentation of like, oh yeah, we watched these YouTube videos. It actually felt to me like a really bad and overlong YouTube, like paranormal YouTube video where it's like they don't really have a direction. They're just kind of like making it up as they go, trying to be creepy. It's like they're trying to be creepy. Don't try to be creepy. Like, figure out how to be creepy or don't.
Yeah, actual creepy. Yeah, it's, what do I want to say?
What do you want to say?
It feels like it's like so much of the reality of this movie, it would be forgivable if it just, it feels like it's a movie with a capital M, kind of movie where it's just, we aren't going to get invested in the characters like it's a realistic situation, but that's fine. But just when you're working with this found footage style, I don't know. I feel like, again, it either has to be more understated, so it's more realistic, or just embrace what it is and go more far out.
Yeah. Well, it also occurs to me, and I'd have to think about other found footage, like how they deal with this. But in theory, I think you still want to have a protagonist that is going through something and makes choices. And this doesn't really have that. It's just a guy pulling a string. You know what I mean? He's just like, oh, look, I found this string. Not even pulling it. I'm just following this string along. It's not like
it's not even a matter of it doesn't even have to be choices necessarily. I mean, that would be ideal, but at least show him reacting. I don't know. I feel like we never actually saw that. Like, he's never questioning
Right.
what he's seeing. He's never having doubt in what he's experiencing.
Yeah.
It's just,
he's not going through anything.
yeah, it's
He's
just
just
a
following
non-character
people
carrying you
around
along, which I guess we've already
and
said.
asking some questions.
So, yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
I don't know how else
Yeah.
to put this stuff.
Yeah. It's
All right.
not good. Sorry.
All right.
But
Well,
good ideas. That's what kills me
yeah.
about it, actually.
It's
some
sad when you're watching it that it's not better.
Right. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a cool like design. That's a cool idea. That's a cool construct. But execution just sucked. It's frustrating. I feel bad because I'm like, I get it. It's sometimes you make a thing and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, great then. Without anything else, so I don't want to belabor it, which it feels like we might be doing. We can just move on to our next section. Here we go. Things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
I got one. Boy, do I have one. Nina Doherty of HorrorNews.net called Noroi the Curse, quote, the best found footage film of the decade.
And see, this is why you probably added it to our hat.
Probably. And I don't know. That's an astonishing, like, everything's subjective. Blah, 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 blah. We know. Great. It's taste. No problem. I'm totally with that. But, like, I feel like you would at least want to attempt to move towards objective truth. And it's wild, just wild to me that somebody would say that it's the best found footage film of the decade.
Well, I'm curious, Tim, you kind of, not giving the unadulterated praise like a lot of us might do on the Blair Witch Project. Do you have another, what you think is the best found footage horror film?
God, I mean, I would say that any of the first 3 Paranormal Activities are better than this.
But better than Blair Witch?
The benefit that I think the Paranormal Activities have that Blair Witch doesn't is a sense of some sort of kind of answer, or at least like reason for the things happening, where Blair Witch feels a little loose in that department. I like the effect that gives the ending of Blair Witch, where it's very sort of nihilistic almost. But from a taste point of view, a very subjective point of view, I'd rather have it be a little more like causal, which Paranormal Activities have. So, but do I think that they're on the whole a better film than Blair Witch? Ooh, maybe not. The impact that Blair Witch had, and also the benefit of being kind of the first, is pretty extraordinary. So yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know.
Well, the other one that I
like, what are other really well? I mean, Rec, the original Rec, that's pretty damn good.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. The other, I think, contender for top. So,
and
you
so
don't know
somebody
if you like
says
it more
that
than
this
Blair
movie's
Witch?
better than any of those? That's rough.
Do you put Rec above Blair Witch?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Totally different style of movie, though, which it has stuff that I mean, yeah, that's, I don't know. I kind of want to go down a little rabbit hole of like found footage. I bet you there's a good list out there somewhere. I'll look at it at some point.
Well, I think Blair Witch is the best, and then Rec is, it's as, I don't know, close second maybe. I think it's great, but it is different enough. It can make them a little hard to compare.
Also of that decade, so I guess we're saying the 2000s, right? Is that what that would equate to?
That's what that list was, but I'm expanding it to all time because I feel like why not just, it's limited even still to expand it. Okay, well, if you're looking at a list, go ahead. I'm going to continue here on with our section of things of note. I wanted to mention the director, Kōji Shiraishi. In his defense, Tim, I have actually recommended another film of his,
Okay.
which was Sadako versus Kayako, the Ju-on Grudge mashup from, I believe, 2016, something like that. But now that is just, as I said, movie with a capital M style film that I love. It's a fun, modern update of the ideas in both of those films. And it's cool. It's both serious and popcorn style, and just makes me think his style works way, way better for, that style. We also have another film of his in our hat to watch, which is Carved the Split-Mouthed Woman.
Okay.
So we have another film of his to look forward to that's not found footage. But Tim, I'm wondering, since we kind of touched on it in what did not work, do you think that for this film, the style was like, do you think overall you could say the found footage style was only hurting it? Was it helping it in some places? Just how would you sort of treat that helping or hurting it debate as far as the found footage style for Noroi?
I think for this particular story, the found footage component hurts it throughout. I just never felt like it was adding an element that was worthwhile to the story. I constantly was like, damn, I wish this was just a movie where I could invest a little bit in the character and had some more nuance to the like imagery. It's too much. Too much was going on visually. It's just like, there's only so much shaky camera and like text on a screen and like digital like interference, and it's just, I don't know, too much.
Yeah, I tried to bring it back to,
what if this was filmed like The Wailing?
Yeah, I try to bring it back to, exactly. It feels like as if The Wailing, they just said, well, how about we make it found footage? Like I bring it back to, okay, what is the story at its core? If that comes first, and does the found footage style organically grow out of that story somehow? And I just cannot make that connection for me, that if you're starting with this story idea down on the paper, minus the found footage stuff, how you get to found footage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. It just doesn't work. It's a big swing and a miss.
Yeah. Well, did you want to come back to any?
I'm looking through this one list of the best 35 found footage horror films. I've seen probably half of them, maybe. And this movie is on this list. So people like it. I mean, that's cool. Good job. I think Host, now that Host exists, is up there for found footage movies. We've seen maybe 4 in our viewings, found footage movies.
Rec 2, I know we've done.
I feel like there was one where they're like running through caves and stuff. That was the devil's breadbasket.
The Devil's Doorway.
Okay, that was close, right?
But I think that we've done 5 would be overstatement. You could I'm pretty sure that's it.
No, because we did Demon House, Devil's Doorway.
No, that wasn't. That would be a debate.
I guess you're right. That's not found footage. That's documentary style, isn't it? Okay. Yep. Okay. Well, either way, Rec 2, Devil's Doorway. Yeah. Damn. I don't know. I think it's a really hard one to do well. Found footage. I saw one that took place in an asylum that I thought was kind of fun. I forget what it was called.
It's funny how you point out it's hard to do well, because I feel like a lot of the times it's almost done as sort of like a safety net thing. Oh, sorry. And we've also done Paranormal Activity 3, of course.
Well,
so there's
true,
our
right,
third
yeah.
one. But it's used as like this film, it feels like it's some sort of safety net. Whereas if, just because it's found footage style, it's going to be realistic. Therefore, it will be default creepy and get to you.
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of feel like doing found footage can be, maybe not always, but can be a bit of a cop-out to say save money. Because it is, in theory, a cheaper way to make movies. Now, if you want to do it well, I'm not sure that holds up. But I think that perception sometimes drives the decision of making it found footage. But generally, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I just don't think that there are very many good found footage movies, period. I've seen a couple sci-fi ones that I was like close. Like you did some fun stuff. Alien stuff.
I liked that one. I think it's in VHS 2 where it's like this crazy cult island. And that is an example of one where it just takes everything to such an nth degree and goes over the top that it's just is ridiculous and works for me. So maybe that's kind of an example of what I was hoping for with this one.
There's that.
Anyway.
I don't know if I would say that it was like super good, but I think people like it. There's the movie called The Taking of Deborah Logan. Did you ever see that one?
No.
It's, it's decent in terms of how they utilize the found footage stuff and like the where they're, what am I trying to say? Like the environment that they're putting it into. So it's, I don't know. It's a challenge.
Just listen, though. It just sounds like we're really just trying to have to scrape the barrel here.
We are.
Fine.
That sucks.
Unfortunate.
I mean, I think that proves the point that it is an actually difficult prospect to make a good found footage movie.
Well, I think that's a good thing of note. Do you have anything else?
Do I? Not really. No.
Well, with that, then, I think we've said our piece on Noroi the Curse.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear if you're a fan listening, why we're so wrong. Sorry, we can't hear you right now, and we appreciate you all the same if you made it this far. But we shall wind down all the same with our RecommenDEADtions. You got one on deck, Tim?
Yeah, since I'm looking at this list, here's a fun one that at the very least is taking the Blair Witch kind of whatever. What do you call that? The mystique of the Blair Witch Project and going kind of into outer space with it, not literally. But like in a fun way that's sort of like, oh, you think this is a Blair Witch Project knockoff? It is, but now it's not. And they go nutso with it, which is kind of fun. I wouldn't say it's like a great movie, but it's certainly a much more fun movie than what we just watched and worth seeing. It's called Troll Hunter. It's from 2010 and it's directed by a guy named Andre Ovredal. I believe, I don't actually know, it's Norwegian, maybe? You'd have to look that up, but I think it's Scandinavian for sure. But it's doing a thing that I think, if you're gonna do, found footage, go a little high concept with it. And it does. It's called Troll Hunter.
Yeah, and make it have it more, I guess, organically tied to the story somehow, which I guess if I actually haven't seen it, but I guess if you're just people, if it's like a TV show, you're just trying to search for Bigfoot or whatever, like that always justifies the found footage style.
Right.
Because of course they got to shoot it to get proof of it or scientifically document it or whatever.
That's right.
All right. For my recommendation, it's not found footage film as far as I know, because it is a documentary, but it's from 1967. Something I'd kind of forgotten about. I'm glad I heard about again and watched it, called Festival. It is about sort of taking footage from like 5 years of performances from the Newport Folk Festival that would happen every year. And it's just really is just one of the great music documentaries. It's largely just concert films, even though it takes it from a set of years from this festival. Incredible performances. If you're into that kind of music at all, you'll love it. If you aren't, then I think you will be after watching it. Yeah, it's called Festival. Check it out. It's really, really good. I think you'd appreciate it, especially Tim.
Hell yeah.
Cool.
Why not?
All right. Well, I think it's my turn to pull from our hat, which we're recording digitally today. So how about I'll just tell you when to stop.
Okay, go for it.
And stop.
We have... All right. Can you see this?
The Curse of Frankenstein from 1957. Great. I've been wanting to check out and do for our show a Hammer horror film. I don't know if we've done it. So
I don't think
either
we've
way,
done a Hammer.
We're lacking for sure. So this will be great. And I think I pulled this from a list of like, what are people's favorites Hammer horror films?
Oh,
so,
cool. Great.
Yeah. This is one of the essentials or classics, apparently. Great.
And this is one of those ones where it's like, there are so many Frankenstein movies, but I feel like it's a hard one to nail down. Like a lot of good attempts, but I want to see one that really makes me go, hell yeah, that's the Frankenstein movie I've been waiting for.
Yeah. Or it's just, I mean, maybe this is coming from the same place, but it's something where I just feel like you can interpret it or put a lot of styles over it. Yeah, have a lot of interpretations on how to do it. So I'm excited to see the Hammer version of that.
I mean,
maybe I feel like I've
Pet
seen it way back in the day.
Yeah. You have, you think?
Pretty sure I watched the major ones, but it would have been, a decade and a half ago now.
I love the concept of like the basic gist of a Frankenstein. Like Pet Sematary is essentially a Frankenstein story.
Yeah. And actually, I'll have a good recommendation for that next episode too. Well,
the thing that's cool about them, I think, is that, and something that this movie was gravely lacking, the one we just reviewed, is that it has a deeper implication, right? Like, that's fairly universal. Like there's two things. You want to either bring back people that we care about or have control over death. And I think that's a really powerful thing. So I'm excited.
Yeah. You mean as far as the core interesting question, relatable idea posed at the heart of Noroi, I am at a loss.
Exactly.
All right. Well, great. Whether you've seen it before or it's been a while, we hope you watch it and join us for next time. Or even if you don't want to watch it and you want to be here, all the same, we welcome you. Great. Well, our big ask, if you made it this far, is why not tell a friend you made it this far? A like-minded horror fiend. They want
specifically
join.
That, though. Just say, hey, friend, I just want you to know that I made it this far.
And I think, that goes a long way these days. So, yeah.
That's right.
Exactly.
A little positivity.
Great. Well, in closing, watch out for those curses. Thanks for listening.
Yep, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Hey.